everybody. So this is a pretty essential issue to me in regards to the Devore shelter, which is otherwise known as the San Bernardino County Shelter. There's a city shelter, which I've never been to, and then there's a county shelter, which is Devore, which I have been to a couple times. As you can see on this image on the left and right-hand sides, these are copies of paperwork that any person could grab off the front desk if they were to visit the Devore shelter. Now, for anybody that's ever been to a shelter, you know that in order to save a dog or in order to track back to a dog or cat, every dog and every cat that is impounded in a shelter is given an animal ID number. The only problem is nowhere on this paperwork does it have anything about an animal ID number. It doesn't list them, and it doesn't even give you the impression that you need to get it. So what if somebody goes to the shelter that's not familiar with how the shelter works? They may not even know that an animal ID number is necessary. But speaking directly about the paperwork, if you look to the very left-hand side, you'll see a cage number. To the right of that, you'll see a tag number. And not every dog on this paperwork even has a tag number. And not every dog at the Devore shelter is even listed in this paperwork. I'd say that there's probably 30% of the dogs at the shelter when I got this paperwork that's even listed in this paperwork. So why aren't the rest of the dogs even listed on this paperwork? I don't know. The cages there are numbered, 1 through however many cages they have. And then the animals on the inside of the cages may or may not be wearing this tag number, which is usually a green or blue tag with a 3-digit number on it. Most of the animals aren't even wearing that tag number. But the problem is that every other shelter I've ever been to, they at least publicly display kennel cards, or at least for the majority of the kennels. Some kennels, they may be missing the cards, but they're supposed to have the cards out. At Devore, it's an entirely new ballgame. They don't do kennel cards at Devore, so nowhere do they display these animal ID numbers. You could go to a cage, it could have 5 dogs in it. There's no animal ID numbers. You could look at that cage. It says cage 18. You look at the paperwork. Cage 18 isn't even listed on the paperwork. And then you're like, well, who's these 5 dogs? Or it could say cage 18 on the paperwork. You look at it and you're like, there's 5 dogs in here. It only says there's 2 dogs. Or it says maybe there's only 1 dog in cage 18. You look at the paperwork and, okay, cage 18 is listed, but the dog on the paperwork is a different dog than the dog that's actually in the cage. So this is the problem with it. At Devore, all kinds of dogs get moved. They get moved from cage to cage. And a secondary problem is if a dog has a tag number, when that dog is either adopted, rescued, or killed and moved out of the shelter system, that tag is then reused. It's given to another dog that comes in. So if a novice comes in who's never been to a shelter and they're looking to adopt, like I said earlier, they may not even know about the animal ID number or getting it. They may look at this tag number and then, come back 3, 4, 5 days later and try to adopt based off that tag number, and a completely different dog has the tag number. The front desk will ask, what's the dog's animal ID? The person will go, I don't know. Why don't they know? Because they didn't even know to get it, because it's not listed on the paperwork. They're not told that they need it. Another problem with the animal ID numbers not being publicly displayed is for networkers like myself who go to Devore. I'll go to Devore and I'll take photographs of 50 or 60 pit bulls that are at the facility. Well, if I go into the front desk and try to get 50 or 60 ID numbers, they're not going to give them to me. They'll tell me to get lost. At any other shelter, I can just take photographs of the kennel cards and correlate them back to the pictures, because what I like to do when I put pictures up is put the ID numbers, actually embed them on the pictures so the picture and the ID number can't get separated from each other. Well, I can't do that when I photograph a Devore because I have no way to know what the ID numbers are. And a secondary issue to all this kennel card stuff, is Devore doesn't even allow volunteers at their facility. So they don't even allow people to go and donate their time freely to help or assist the animals, to walk them, to interact with them, socialize them, to show them affection. They don't allow volunteers at Devore. Why is that? If you have issue with the first problem that I outlined or the second problem that I outlined or both problems, and I'm pretty sure most people that watch this video are going to have problems with both, then please contact these individuals that I have noted here. The first person you see is Trudy Raimundo, and that is the acting director of the Public Health Department. The Animal Care and Control falls underneath the Public Health Department. So my assumption is that's probably whoever runs the shelter, that's probably their boss. So your best bet is to contact Trudy. And the secondary person I listed is Greg Beck, who is noted as being the program manager for the Devore Animal Care and Control. I don't know if that's different than the actual on-site manager or if it's the same thing, but it couldn't hurt to email Greg Beck as well. Email these people, try to get an answer. These are essential and big problems. These are just basic things that fundamentally help the animals in numerous ways, and they're not being done, and they're simple things. They're things that every other shelter does. They're things that every other shelter allows, albeit maybe badly, but at least they allow it. Devore doesn't even allow it. Devore doesn't even do it. That's unacceptable. I hope you agree. I hope you'll reach out to them and try to at least get an answer on file, and maybe we can get this thing changed over time.